Good afternoon to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. We've made it to Thursday, almost to the weekend. We're creeping closer and closer. Just hang on a little bit longer. But before we get to the weekend, of course, we got to talk about what is happening in the tropics. It's been a pretty busy week, especially for folks across Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas. They've been inundated with a ton of heavy rain, of course, from Debby, which briefly became a Category 1 80-mile-per-hour hurricane and now has weakened to a tropical depression. So I want to talk about Debby in just a minute, but I want to show you where we generally see a higher chance for development of these tropical systems for the month of August. Of course, we are still in August. We've already had Debby, but we could have more. So generally, the best chance to see a tropical system developing in August would be down around the central Atlantic Ocean. Western Atlantic has a pretty decent shot, and even here in the Gulf of Mexico, there is a higher than average chance that we could get a tropical depression, a tropical storm, or potentially a hurricane. But you can see that kind of pink purplish color down around the central Atlantic, and that would be the area most likely to see tropical action brewing for the rest of this month. So we are closely monitoring the entire Atlantic basin, of course, the Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf of Mexico to see if we have anything else that could give us a little trouble over the next few weeks. So far for this 2024 hurricane season for the Atlantic basin, we've had 4 named storms already. Of course, 2 of those became hurricanes and 2 were tropical storms, but all of them have been Gulf Coast landfalls. Of course, Tropical Storm Alberto, Tropical Storm Chris made landfall on the Mexican Gulf Coast, but Beryl, which at one point was a Category 5 hurricane, and Debby, which is a Category 1 hurricane at one point, made landfall along the U.S. Gulf Coast. So it has already been a very busy hurricane season. The next name on the list would be Ernesto. We're hoping it will be a long time before we have to worry about Ernesto, but of course we are monitoring things closely. First, I want to give you a view of tropical depression Debby. As of the 4 p.m. advisory, it has now been downgraded to a tropical depression with 35-mile-per-hour winds, but you can still see it kind of spinning there. That counterclockwise rotation over Charlotte, Fayetteville, still impacting the Carolinas with some heavy rain and some gusty wind. So this system, even though it is in a weaker state, will still be a problem. It's still dumping some very heavy rainfall. So that is certainly not good news. So we are still keeping a close eye on Debby, but the good news is that at least it has now weakened to a tropical depression, although that major flash flood threat will stick around for a big portion of the Carolinas, even up into Virginia, and then it starts to spread north and east over the next couple of days, especially for Friday. Parts of New York, parts of Pennsylvania, really going to see that big flash flood risk. So this system will keep its act together, at least as a depression, hanging on for dear life around Friday. Still a 35-mile-per-hour tropical depression around 1 a.m. Friday and 1 p.m. Friday. It then is going to push up into Canada as we go into Saturday, and after that, it's going to be out of here. So that is certainly some good news. But of course, until that happens, we still have the big threat for heavy rainfall. Our exclusive Fox model futurecast showing Debby spinning and finally starting to pick up a little speed for Friday and Saturday. By Friday morning, the heaviest of that rain, as you can see, up towards parts of Pennsylvania. In fact, impacting Pittsburgh, Scranton, Philadelphia should miss out on the majority of that rain. I think it stays west, but there will still be the potential for some heavy rainfall, at least briefly, and even up into Syracuse, New York, Albany, New York, Buffalo, New York, some very heavy rain coming in from tropical depression Debby. Let's fast forward a little bit more. Now we're looking at the Friday evening, Friday night time frame. I'll stop the clock here around 8 p.m. Friday. And this system still dumping heavy rain to parts of the Northeast, up around New England, and starting to push into eastern portions of Canada. So at least by this weekend, Debby will be out of the U.S. and hopefully folks across Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas can start the recovery process from all of that heavy rain. But we've already had a lot of heavy rain and we've got more to come. In fact, this model between today and Saturday showing the potential for as much as 4 to 8 inches of additional rain. And this is going to be basically from eastern parts of North Carolina through Virginia and now up into central and eastern portions of Pennsylvania. So that would include some of these spots that you see on the map. Of course, down towards Wilmington, still under that big flash flood threat, Richmond, and also up into the Pittsburgh area. And just to the east of Pittsburgh, several inches of rain potentially from what's left of Debby, which, like I said, is still a tropical depression. So with all that rainfall expected, all the rain that we've already had, that flash flood risk is still going to be extremely high for parts of North Carolina, parts of Virginia, and up into parts of Pennsylvania. You can see some of the hardest hit areas expected to be Raleigh, Greensboro, Danville, Roanoke, and up around Harrisonburg. So we still have a big flash flood threat here. You can see the biggest flood threat for tomorrow will start to push up to the north, and that is going to include parts of Pennsylvania and parts of New York. So certainly be careful if you are heading in that direction. All right, the good news though, at least Debby has gotten weaker, and by this weekend, Debby will be long gone, pushing up into Canada. Now, with Debby on her way out, let's head out to the Atlantic to see what else could potentially be cooking out here. We do have another tropical wave that is trying to get going. It's in the eastern Atlantic right now, and it's just a very disorganized area of showers and storms at this point. So not really looking that impressive at this point. In fact, over the next 1 to 2 days, a 0% shot for development. However, it is expected to push into an area that is a lot more favorable for development as it gets closer to those Caribbean islands, the Greater Antilles, Lesser Antilles. That is when we could start to see some development of this tropical disturbance. So I think over the next 7 days, that chance will go from 0% to a medium 40% chance for development. So notice this orange area. This is the expected track, at least what the models are showing right now. So I think as we get into maybe the middle, end of next week, over towards some of the Caribbean islands, there could be maybe a tropical depression or a tropical storm developing. Of course, it is still several days out from any sort of impacts to Houston or to Southeast Texas, so we'll have to watch it closely. But at least for the next 3 to 4 days, nothing to worry about here. But of course, we'll continue to monitor this. The forecast projecting this potential system to move over those Caribbean islands, maybe up towards the Bahamas, over towards Hispaniola, and maybe getting close to Cuba towards the end of next week. Florida could also be in that path as we look long term. So right now, just something to watch, but that is the only other system that we are monitoring at this point. But we are getting into that period where we start to see more storms. Typically mid to late August, definitely September is usually the most active period of hurricane season. We've got tons of warm water to work with out there. You can see those water temps well into the 80s, in fact right at 90 degrees for that northern Gulf Coast. So we are still expecting a very busy hurricane season. I want to show you this graphic because this kind of tells the story. Our Colorado State University meteorologists put out, of course, a forecast for what they're expecting for each hurricane season, and they do updates throughout the season depending on how many storms we've already had, what the models are currently showing. And this is the latest update as of a couple of days ago. We have basically them saying they're not expecting quite as many named storms as they were expecting with their July forecast. They've dropped that number from 25 to 23, but that is still several named storms above the average of 14. So even though they subtracted 2 named storms from their projection, they're still expecting the remainder of this hurricane season to be very busy. So don't let your guard down. So at this point, the August update calling for 23 named storms, 12 hurricanes, and out of those hurricanes, likely 6 becoming major hurricanes. That would be category 3, 4, or 5. So far this season, we've only had 1 major hurricane. Of course, that was Hurricane Beryl. which grew to a Category 5 and then hit us in the Houston area as a Category 1 80-mile-per-hour hurricane. So we hope there are no additional major hurricanes, but Colorado State University forecasters calling for at least 6 in their forecast for the rest of the season. Here are some other interesting projections that the CSU forecasters are calling for. Chance of a major hurricane striking the U.S. coastline, they put that at around 56%. So that's pretty high. So that's why we have to stay alert, because we are getting into the very busy part of hurricane season. Chance of a major hurricane striking along the U.S. East Coast, they've got that at about 30%. So that would be around a 1 out of 3 chances for that to happen. Chance of a major hurricane hitting the U.S. Gulf Coast, of course, that would be our neck of the woods. They have that percentage right around 38%. So that would be a major Category 3, Category 4, or Category 5 hurricane. Of course, that can do a lot of devastation. And right now, our chances for the Gulf Coast, at least the U.S. part of it, right at 38%. So we are going to watch things closely. We are not out of the woods yet. We've still got a long way to go in this hurricane season. And we definitely have the shot for maybe more tropical trouble heading our way over the next few weeks and definitely over the next few months. Fingers crossed, hope that doesn't happen. But of course, as you can see, the peak of hurricane season right around September 10th. And then after that, hopefully things start to settle down. But of course, we are tracking the tropics closely. We'll continue these updates day by day as we get you through the rest of this 2024 hurricane season. So make sure that you are ready and prepared for any tropical trouble that comes our way. When it's quiet like this, now is the time to think about what you need to be doing to prepare. Make sure you have your insurance papers in a safe place. Make sure you have insurance, and just make sure you know your evacuation routes and have that emergency gear kit ready to go. Just like with Beryl, those systems can make those last-minute turns, and we can be right in that path at any moment. So you definitely need to be prepared for the rest of what will likely be a very busy hurricane season. All right, well, that will do it for your tropical weather update for today. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. Make it a great rest of your day.